Okay, great. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you because Tangerine is in such an interesting and unique position in the banking ecosystem at a time when there's a lot of technological change, there's a lot of regulatory change, and I'm just really interested to hear how you're thinking about all of these things. And yeah, I'm also just, so you've been in your role for about a year and a half, I believe.
That's right.
Can you just tell me a little bit about how that's been going? What's, what have you learned? What surprised you after taking on the role?
Yeah, I'm happy to. It has been amazing. It's been an amazing 18 months. When I went in, I knew that Tangerine had been this like award-winning orange bank. And I had an opportunity. I had worked at Scotiabank before I took on the role at Tangerine. But there's a difference between knowing what phenomenal client service looks like from an award perspective and then actually hearing it from the clients. And so what surprised me the most was the true brand love that clients have for Tangerine. And clients are so great about saying, this is what you're doing well, this is what you're really failing at. And so the more I was hearing from clients, the clients were almost cheering us on about what it was we were doing at Tangerine, and also very clear about what we were not yet doing that they wanted to see more of. And so it surprised me that there was that much forthright feedback that clients really wanted to help us co-create. And so we've been leaning into that for the last 18 months.
Okay, great. I have to ask, what kind of feedback were you getting? What kind of things were they saying?
I'm happy to share. So everything from, we like how easy it is to use the app. We like what you've done with the product suite, but you don't have enough. So Tangerine has always benefited from having more of a simpler, uncomplicated, we've called it for a long time, uncomplicated product suite. But as our clients have grown, many of the clients that were there before it was actually called Tangerine, the clients who said, I've kind of gone through my life, I'm growing up, I need more, I need some wealth. Hey, I'm an entrepreneur. What are you doing for me now, right? I love you for savings, but what else do you have available for us? So that has really helped us shape what we want to do with Tangerine going forward.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I imagine, Tangerine, before it was Tangerine, it was ING Direct.
That's right.
And I'm old enough to remember the commercials for ING Direct on TV back in, I think it launched in 1997. So yeah, I imagine you must have some customers who, would be at a very different life stage than when they started, like preparing for retirement, things like, So what, how do you offer services as people change, go through those life stage cycles?
That's right. But clients who've been wanting to be digital or have been digital, I mean, they started at ING Direct on the phone, right? And then went through the digitization wave. And so clients who've been there at the very beginning saying, this is what's really good, and this is where it isn't.
Great. Okay. So yeah, another thing that's unique about Tangerine is it's a digital first bank, but it's a subsidiary of Scotiabank, wholly owned subsidiary. So how do you leverage that relationship while also making the pitch that we're our own unique, distinct from the big six banks?
Well, there's been so many strengths that we've been able to take from being owned by Scotia overall. There is expertise that you want in running at any bank. But the expertise may be expertise you need few and far between, or expertise that we can benefit from the larger bank investing in, and then we get the benefit. So as an example, cybersecurity, right? You want to be sort of at the leading edge of cybersecurity, and making sure that we can invest enough in cybersecurity would be one example of that. Incentive design, right? Do we really need our own incentive design team at Tangerine, or can we work with an advisory service out of the parent bank to support us? But the Scotiabank has been so great about saying too, Tangerine, you are different, you are unique, and what can you do as Tangerine to innovate for us? What can we learn from an innovation in a smaller organization that can move at a different speed? And so that's been wonderful.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's really interesting. So yeah, we're also in, right now there are a lot of non-bank sort of challengers to banks that are, getting more and more clients and more assets. And some of them, so, you've got like your Neo Financial, your Coho, your Wealthsimple. Wealthsimple in particular, makes one of their first big product launch events they called the end of banking. So yeah, I'm curious, what can you, how do you view, competition from non-bank fintechs like that? And are they going to end banking?
I think competition raises the bar for everybody. I think the more competition we have in the country, the better it is for Canadians, and so I welcome the competition. Because what you can see from the competition, not just in Canada, but there's competition around the world. And when I think about who is delivering the best, like the best client service or the best leading edge capabilities in countries in Asia or in countries in Europe, and can we bring that to Canada's shores? And so for me, us seeing what others are doing is helpful, but for what Tangerine is doing, it's about what our clients are saying they need and what we are seeing everywhere that we would like to bring to Canada.
Okay, great. Sounds good. Yeah, I want to talk about digital transformation, which is something that every bank, goes through, needs to do. You end up having a code base that was built perhaps in 1997, and you need to update it, and that's a huge undertaking. And Tangerine is undergoing something similar to that right now. You have a 10-year deal with Engine by Starling to overhaul your digital platform. I guess what's that going to mean for the customers? And how did you decide it was time to do something like that?
When I started, we looked at what we had that was really great and what we had that needed a refresh. And when we looked around to say, okay, we want to do something that is real time, it is digitally native, it is cloud native, and we know AI is coming. And so how can we modernize what we are doing to deliver the best for the clients, knowing where we are going to be going? And so we looked around, and Engine by Starling was a great provider that we had spent some time with. We learned what Starling had done in the UK, and we decided that with this opportunity, it allowed us to modernize in order for us to, rather than have every 10, 14, 20 years modernizing the system, it allowed for continuous updating. Right? It is an excellent software as a service provider. And so as we're underway with that transformation, we know the capabilities and the new products and new feature sets that will come with it out of the box, and also that we can continually develop with Engine about what that's going to look like for the clients. So it allows us to innovate at a different speed than we were able to before. And so we determined the time is now, because there's no better place than now. I think that technology is evolving at such a rapid rate that we wanted to be on a core platform that allows us to really innovate.
Okay, smart. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Does that mean it's Starling's job to do all the updating in the background? Like, you've kind of outsourced that to have it, or how does that work?
It's Engine's job.
Yeah,
so Engine is the SaaS provider. Starling was their primary client. They have clients now around the world, but Engine continuously updates it. But we have conversations about product roadmaps and what that looks like, along with their other clients around the world, which means that we can benefit from what are the trends that we are seeing in other parts of the world, and how will that help evolve the platform. So from our perspective, it brings more intuitive capability to clients as we go forward.
Great, yeah, and takes a lot of work off your plate too, I imagine.
Well,
yeah.
I think it directs the work into areas where we think we have real differentiation opportunities. But if something has been commoditized, then let's make sure that we are working with those who can just continuously develop really great evolutions of that, while we focus our teams on the things that we think are going to be great for clients.
Okay, great. So yeah, let's talk about loyalty, which is loyalty. The economics of loyalty programs are so fascinating to me. And Tangerine just got into the loyalty game with your first with a rewards card through Scene+. Yeah, tell me about the decision to offer something like that, and how to compete with Neo, for example. That's one of their core offerings is rewards credit cards. You've got PC and Loblaw about to come out with more the PC financial credit card merger. I'm not explaining this well, but hopefully, there's competition in that area.
Yes.
How are you going to differentiate yourself?
So firstly, the decision to offer the World Elite Rewards card was on the basis of client feedback. So clients said, we love that you have a simple credit card, and we want more. Canadians love their points. Do you experience that? Like, Canadians really love their points. And so as we looked at what we were offering, we thought we can do more. And because Scotiabank is an owner of Scene+, we looked at how we could leverage Scene+ for Tangerine clients. And that's why we came out with the card at the beginning. And then we've just announced, of course, the partnership with Shell, so cents off per liter at the pump. And we've had great response in the last 36 hours about that, because people in Canada and our clients in particular are telling us these are the things we care about. Affordability. Can we spend on gas? Can we spend on grocery? These are the things that are occupying our mind today. And so we wanted to provide something that was going to allow them to do that.
Great. Okay. So yeah, one of the challenges you have, I imagine, is that at Tangerine, it's a digital-first bank. Its value proposition to start off with was, we're sort of fewer frills, we're lower fees, we're simple, right? And then the more things you add, like loyalty programs and premium offerings and things like that, makes it less simple. So how do you balance that value proposition of offering, that sort of like low fee, digital first stripped down banking experience with, adding stuff on that people want?
Tangerine's always been about the uncomplicated, right? And how we delivered uncomplicated in the past was through a certain set of products. Uncomplicated in the future with the new tools and new capabilities that are out there, I think is about how can we be intuitive and how can we help really drive momentum. So complication is a choice. Like that's a design choice. If you think about it how clients would think about it, and I think about it a little bit like I think about my health, right? I want to have a fantastic doctor. I have a Whoop. I wear a Whoop. Anybody else wear a Whoop? One other Whoop wearer in the room, a couple other Whoop wearers in the room. Do you know what a Whoop is?
I do not.
Okay, so a Whoop is a biofeedback loop.
Okay.
It's like an Apple Watch, but it's a different kind. I don't want to think about that all the time. I want it to be uncomplicated and I want it to be intuitive, but I want to know that it's working. And that's how I think about banking or financial services in general. I want to know that it works, but I don't want to have to think about it all the time. And so when we think about that for being intuitive as a design choice, and then work back from that client lens on, they don't want to be thinking about us all the time, but they want it to work, they want it to be great, they want it to support them and help them grow their wealth, then how do we design that in?
Right. Okay. Sounds good. So you got to ask an AI question in 2026.
Yes.
You can't, leave a panel without asking one. It's AI and banking is such an interesting challenge where you have to, invest in order to not be left behind. But I also imagine there are a million people selling you things and saying, hey, invest in this, hey, do this. And it's really hard to tell what's going to be hype, what's going to be worth spending your resources on. How is Tangerine thinking about this and making those decisions?
So firstly, from a safety perspective, right? How do we use the full technology suite at our disposal to bring what we want to bring to clients? And when we think about areas where we've been able to do proof of concept or testing out any new tech, whether it's AI or whether it's blockchain capability or whether it's new digital advances, you want to be able to test that out. So we've been testing it out, but we've been testing it out in areas that is about how do we protect our clients. So last year we tried a proof of concept that was very successful for us in AML, in deploying AI to do anomaly detection in anti-money laundering. And so when you think about it from the how do we protect our clients first, and then how do we leverage the capabilities in order to do that, you can, and the tech has been evolving at such a rate that you can have tested something last summer, and then now the capabilities of some of the frontier models or the reasoning models are evolving over time. And so it's about how do we make the right decision for today and future-proof ourselves as much as possible that if we want to change providers, model providers or cloud providers or digital providers, we have the opportunity to make those decisions ourselves to put it together for clients. But when we think about it like that, and because of course there's a lot of different services on offer, and some are great, some are maybe not so great, but it's going to be about how you put it all together. And what is that coordination mechanism across all of those capabilities that we have to keep front and center so that we have an intuitive experience. I'm a big believer in AI for good. I think our ability to use AI going forward is like the ability to pour intelligence on any problem that the world could have. But it's still very early days on what this technology is and can do. And so there are risks associated, and risks associated with taking it on. There are also risks associated with not. And so for me, when we think about how do we use AI for good, how do we solve really challenging problems, and how do we make it as intuitive as possible for clients and work our way back from that starting point, that's where we're really experimenting.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm also curious to what degree having, Scotiabank as an owner helps in that regard. Are you, leveraging their AI, investment and teams, or are you doing it on your own, or a combination?
It's a combination. So we are leveraging, Scotia has announced Scotia Intelligence, so we have rolled out that capability for our employee base at Tangerine on how do we leverage some of the models to individually be more productive. I used this just recently. I dropped in our new visual identity, and if you haven't seen it, I suggest you go and have a look at what we look like. And I dropped in another document. I said, please create it in the new visual identity, and out it popped. Right? So it saves individual time. But when we have what's available across Scotia, then we go deep on what are the use cases that really make sense for Tangerine clients, and how can we then develop our own capability set for that client base. It's not just AI for AI's sake. It's about AI for practical use, right? So it's about the protection. It's about the risk management, AML, fraud, anti-scam. But it's also about, is it more usable? What is that experience that we'll be able to give to our clients? And that's where we were able to leverage our provider with Engine, because they're seeing what that deployment looks like in other parts of the world too. So Starling rolled out something called Spend Intelligence and Scam Intelligence directly for their clients, which was about analyzing the client's own data and saying, these are your spending patterns, and here are some insights about what you might want to do differently. Or we have noticed that there is some scam activity that might be happening. Here's how you might be able to interrupt it. Right? And so it's being able to learn like that as people are going through this evolution.
Yeah, banks and AI, the banks have all the data, right? They have so much data. So banks and AI, I think, can be, they kind of make sense going together.
And I go back to, and I'm not sure, are you using AI in your life?
I do, yes. I've recently switched from ChatGPT to Claude.
Oh.
Claude, I think it's the best at writing and the best at coding.
Oh, well, there
out of
you
the
go.
ones I've tried, yeah.
So I'm using it, and I'm going to go back to the Whoop example. So I have a Whoop that has a beta app on it that is AI. And the Whoop app tells me, hey, you had a red recovery. What happened yesterday? And it's a conversational interface, but it's using my own data. Or it's saying, hey, I see you're green. Maybe you put a little bit more strain on your system today. And I type in, actually, I twisted my knee last week. That's why I'm not putting more strain on. Oh, here are some things that you could do differently. So it is so personalized, because it's not just using all the data they have at their disposal, it's using my own data to provide insights for me on how I am using it. And that, when I think about that experience and bringing experiences from other parts of our clients' lives into what would they want that experience to be like for their bank, I think that's really important.
Okay, great. So I'm going to ask you about stablecoins, which I know that you have thought deeply about because we have talked about this before. Stablecoin, where I feel like, first of all, I'm just so interested and excited that Canadian banks are willing to say the word stablecoin and talk about it instead of just being like, we don't, we're not acknowledging that. We're not touching it with a 10-foot pole. I'm also curious what you think about I've noticed that analysts on earnings calls are starting to ask banks about, are you worried about stablecoins eating into your fees from payments and settlements and things like that? There's, starting to be worry about it, taking away from some revenue streams for banks. So how do you think about stablecoins at Tangerine? Would you ever, integrate one into Tangerine? What do you think about them?
So I go back to what I mentioned at the very beginning, that clients tell us what it is that clients want, right? And clients are not saying, I want a stablecoin. Clients, I don't think, would know what that would mean, right? Clients are saying, I want faster payments. I want to be able to move my money across borders. I don't want to have to wait for the money to take ages and ages to go from this account to that account. And so when we start with those use cases about what are the client's needs that we can solve, and then look at the technology of blockchain capability is really strong. And so when we back that into how do we use that technology for the use cases that our clients are asking for, I think stablecoin is a great example about how a technology that has been tested, it's been around now for quite a while, right?
It has.
Over a decade now. That a lot of the kinks have been working their way out of the system. And so how do we make use of that capability to meet that client need? I was speaking with a client recently who was talking about her company was interfacing with suppliers in Asia, and she was in Asia, and they were saying, well, I can do this with stablecoins with my clients around the world. Why can't I do it with you? And so when we talk about the demand is here. It's here in Canada, and we have to find a way to meet that demand before we start seeing other providers from outside the country meeting the demand, and maybe unintended consequences for us in Canada. So I'm a big fan. I am a really big fan about how you see these technologies come together. So when you think about agentic AI and stablecoin and what that's going to mean, I do think that we have to be testing out these systems. We have to be working through, if you put all these pieces together, what are the new risks and the new opportunities that are associated with it? And so when I think about Tangerine, it has to be right for the Tangerine client and the Tangerine environment, but absolutely, we like to experiment and learn.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, I find it interesting that the person, what country was she from? The one who was saying, why can't I interface with?
She was from Canada.
From Canada.
But it was her supplier in Asia who was saying, this is how I want to be paid.
Yeah.
This is how I am working with other clients around the world. And so we know that we have clients who work cross-border, who have businesses that go cross-border, people who travel and want to go cross-border. So I see a really strong use case there.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I think I always find people who sort of get crypto the best on an intuitive level are often from sort of non-OECD countries who, can see the use case is much more obvious. It's, you're sending remittances all the time. You're having to deal with a really volatile currency. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Great, okay.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, please.
Anyone want me to ask Claire a question? Yes, absolutely. Okay, so as Tal had mentioned at the front, you do work on the future of finance, right? You write a lot of articles on the future of finance.
I do.
When you think forward for all that you are seeing, what do you think is advice that financial services leaders should be taking away from what's happening in the intersection between tech and finance?
Yeah, I think the main thing is don't be complacent. Yeah, I know that, the Canadian financial, we're at such an interesting inflection point where Canadian finance has always been sort of defined by, well, not always, but since the 2008 financial crisis, we've really defined ourselves by financial system safety, that our banks didn't fail during the crisis. We're really proud of our, that propelled Mark Carney, his career to, being the governor of the Bank of England, and now he's our prime minister. We've always taken a lot of pride in the safety and stability of our financial system, which is absolutely something to be proud of. But yeah, it also means, I remember hearing Peter Rutledge, the OSFI superintendent, speak, and he was talking about, you don't want to be so safe that it's the safety of the graveyard. Wow. Right? Nothing's safer than being nice and cozy in your coffin and never, trying anything, taking any risks. The finance industry is in the business of risk taking. You got to take some risks. You got to try new things. There's, with all the regulatory changes that are happening, really systemically important changes, non-bank institutions having access to financial system rails in ways they never have before. I think, anybody in this industry just needs to be awake and on top of things.
Okay, great. So if we roll forward a year from now, how will you have known that this group listened to you? Like, what will we have seen in a year that means that people get it?
Yeah, it's so a lot of the changes that are coming down the pipe now from this change we've seen in attitude going from just focusing on safety and stability to focusing on innovation and competition. That's the leaders in Ottawa are saying it's because we're in a productivity crisis. We need to be competitive with the U.S. We need to do this for the economy. So I think that's definitely going to be one thing to look at is did it work? Did productivity improve? Did the GDP grow? I know in other countries like Brazil, for example, there's really interesting stats about open banking growing the GDP by making lending more efficient. I think the proof will be in the data. Did it have the intended effect or not? Another one that I think about all the time is hear a lot from people in fintech and crypto about how much they want to, help disadvantaged people, the unbanked, people who don't have access to the financial system now. I always think a really good question to ask is, if somebody's saying this is going to help, the poor and disadvantaged and also make me a lot of money, you should ask a lot of questions about, whether that's actually true. There's a term called predatory inclusion, the idea of, if you're giving previously, people who have been excluded from the financial system access, is it actually for their benefit, or is it because you want them to buy, for example, your, private credit shares that you're trying to dump? I think that's another one. Is did it actually help people? Did it help consumers? Did it help people who didn't have as much access to banking before, or did it just extract from them?
Oh, interesting. So
Yeah.
we should meet up in a year from now and see where we are.
Great. Yeah. So actually, that leads into I wanted to ask you. I know that you, Tangerine has. I think your tagline is "Wealth for All." Is that right? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, as we've been talking about where we can really support clients and clients that are evolving through their life. So we talked about clients that we've had for a long time, and then brand new emerging clients like early adults as they're coming in and looking for different types of financial services. We have a belief at Tangerine that we should democratize access to wealth. And it's not just about providing the product, it's about saying, can we give the experience and the guidance and the advice and the financial literacy to everybody, regardless of where they are on the wealth spectrum? Because people define wealth differently. What does it mean to have wealth? It's not just about the dollar amount of wealth that you're holding. It's about, do you have the confidence? Do you have the ability to say, I'm good, right? I know my financial situation, I understand it, and I'm going in the direction that I want to be going. And how do we provide that support? So when we talk about designing from the client in to the organization, it's about saying, meet everybody where they are and help them get financially more well. So financial wellness, I've got this wellness theme going on, but the financial wellness, and what does that financial wellness mean for each of those individuals, and then how do we bring that capability to them?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tell me how Tangerine thinks about financial advice, because that's one thing that still, with all the innovation that's happened, is a big problem in that, access to high quality, unbiased financial advice. Often they say, well, you got to have $500,000 of investable assets. And if you don't, you can get free advice from a bank, but they're going to be selling you their mutual funds that earn them fees and might not be the best, thing for a person's situation. How do you solve that? How are you thinking about that at Tangerine?
Well, we think about personalization for clients. So what is the financial advice that makes the most sense for that client? So we at Tangerine, we have advisors who sit down with clients and say, what are your own individual goals? We've recently launched what we call our Wealth MVP, which says, let's just give you a picture of what your total net worth looks like and what your trajectories could look like if you save a little bit more. If you're saving that coffee that you would have every morning, what does that feel like for you over a period of time? Do you need more of a financial overhaul about how you are using the full suite of services at your availability? And that advice is available. The more we can bring in these technologies that allow for much more broader use of the capabilities at a low price point, low cost point for the client, I think the better off we're going to be. And so that's where I think when we talk about where the intersection of is between banking and technology, the technology is going to allow for this to be available in a highly personalized way, and I can't wait for that.
Okay, great. We've got just a few seconds left. What do you want people's takeaway from today to be the best ever session?
The best ever
history?
Session? Well, yes, thanks, Tal. The best ever session. I want people to go and try Tangerine. If I can plug that, like Tangerine, we are changing. It is a great, great service. I am so proud of the team that I inherited, that I've gotten to know really over the last 18 months. It's a wonderful service, and we are improving it, and we are co-developing it with clients. So if you don't like it, tell me, because I'd love to hear why you don't, and give it a try. You too.
Okay. Well,
Thank
fantastic.
you.
Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure.
Thanks, all.